Good afternoon, YouTube. Drew of the Shed here on this fine Sunday afternoon, which happens to be May 8th, Mother's Day. I am smoking something brand new. I am smoking my Mario Grande Rhodesian, and in it I have some Orlik Golden Slice. Now, what an appropriate tobacco I chose to smoke on Mother's Day, seeing as this Orlik often reminds me of my grandparents' farm where my mother grew up, and they had this whole shed packed with hay, and this Orlik just reminds me of that. Reminds me of my mother, the good times. Speak of her in the past tense, but she is very much alive. But just reminds me of that farm and the good times we had there. I'm playing with my cousins in that haystack, and we'd take adventures, and we learned how to play fairly with each other and not how to be too hard. And I think it's rather appropriate that it's Mother's Day today, and I'm titling this video, this message, The Storyteller. My mother was a teacher, and she is a librarian now. Someone with a love of the written word, of stories. And it is oftentimes that in my youth, she would read my brother and I bedtime stories. And it's a great way to end our day. We could go anywhere in those stories. It was wonderful. There we go. Now she's going good. And I rather like that time of adventure. It'd put my brother and I in a different state, send us off to the dream world in good hands. But in my life, there did come a time where the passion for a story was almost extinguished. Up until this time, I got into high school, I learned to love Shakespeare and different poets, read my favorite book now for the first time, that being George Orwell's Animal Farm. But then came my third year of high school, which is commonly in the United States known as the junior year of high school. And I had a teacher, she made us read The Great Gatsby. And the problem was, we had to break it down bit by bit by bit by bit. The words at that point in time had no more meaning. They had lost their importance to me, because I was driven to analyze them so far that they were just words on a page and not a conveyed idea anymore. And it was really sad, because up until that point I'd lose myself in stories. I love stories. And so I went on from that year to my senior year of high school, getting ready to graduate high school. And for literature class, I was assigned to a man by the name of Jason Lyles. Now, Mr. Lyles, he was a lawyer, or had been a lawyer, but he had no passion in it. His passion was to teach, and specifically literature. He loved Keats, he loved all the poets, he loved Shakespeare, and he restored that fire in me. He made the story important again. He gave the words meaning once more, and even to a play that I happen to not like, which was Macbeth, and I still to this day do not like Macbeth. But he made me see its value So that's very important, the story. And it's not that we shouldn't extract meaning from stories and lessons from stories, because that's oftentimes why they were told, passed down orally through a tradition and written down as a part of our history and our families. It's just that sometimes we get caught analyzing them too much. And I think that's part of why, in this day and age, we don't like the story anymore. At least for some of us. And there's others of us that were fortunate enough to never lose the story. And because of that, they are richer and better for it. And I think sometimes, too, we are fed with so much information now. We're just like, I don't have time for a story. Give me the raw details. Just give it to me straight. Just give it to me straight. I don't need story. I don't need to follow it up. And that's wrong. We forget that we're driven by story. And we learn by story. The story is very important. It lets our minds wonder. Wonder the possibilities that could be of a different land. It inspires creativity. And I think us as pipe smokers need to understand better than anybody else that the story matters. That we learn from it. That we pass our history through it. And I got to thinking last night, I was sitting on my couch and looked across the living room, and there's my bookshelf, or, well, my wife and I's bookshelf. And on it was a box set of books. I thought, the pipe smoking community sure loves this author, but I actually haven't read his most well-known work. Who is that man, you ask? C.S. Lewis. On there is this. This is a box set from the 1970s of the Chronicles of Narnia. And I got to thinking, wouldn't it be cool if there was someone that read all those stories? I got to thinking some more. Drew, why don't you be that person that reads those stories? And so I'm going to start something new on my channel here. I'm thinking every Friday evening I'm going to try to make a video reading the Chronicles of Narnia. A couple chapters at a time, not the whole books at once. Going in the order they were published, and I know there's a big debate, I looked this up, about, should you read them in the order they were published, or should you read them in the chronological order? We're going to go with the order that C.S. Lewis published them. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to read Chronicles of Narnia together. Because story is important. And so with this week, the quote I found is something from Hannah Arendt. German, she didn't classify herself as a philosopher. She didn't like that term very much. Let's just say a studier of humanity. And that is, storytelling... excuse me here. Let me find my place here in my notebook. Storytelling, of course, you get trouble sometimes you can't read your own writing. Storytelling reveals meaning without committing to the error of defining it. Let's think about that. And so until I see you again, my friends, be kind and good to each other.